our experiment, we investigated how different brands of sweets can affect our reaction times.
Here's the equipment we used.
We used 4 different brands of sweets.
The 4 we used were Maltesers, jelly beans, gummy bears and sour punch.
We used a meter rule.
We measured the distance we caught it at after consuming each different sweet. We then plugged these numbers into a conversion graph, which we used to figure out the reaction times.
Our last piece of equipment was a weighing scale. We used this to ensure that it was a fair test and that all sweets weighed up to 25 grams. And this is how we measured the distance.
Then, by using this graph, we were able to figure out the reaction time.
Step 1.
The first thing we did was measure our reaction times before eating any sweets.
We did this so we could compare it to our end results.
My normal reaction time ended up being 0.165 seconds.
The first sweet eaten was Maltesers. We then waited 15 minutes before testing the distance.
We did this to ensure the sugar had enough time to kick in.
Our reaction time ended up decreasing to 0.136 seconds.
Before consuming the next sweet, we waited a whole day to ensure the sugar from the Maltesers wouldn't affect our results.
The reaction time was still less than the original, at 0.14 seconds.
The next day we did the same experiment using jelly beans.
The reaction time was 0.15 seconds, still less than the original.
The next sweet we used were gummy bears. The reaction time still ended up being less than the original at 0.125 seconds.
The last step to our experiment was to answer the question.
To help us answer our question, we wrote down the names of each of the sweets next to their reaction times. From this, we can clearly see that gummy bears reduce the reaction time the most. Following that is Maltesers, then sour punch and finally jelly beans. In conclusion, all of the sweets that we tested ended up reducing our reaction times by 0.01 seconds or more.